Hello and welcome back. I'm Joshua Barnes and you're watching NewsX World. Let's first take a look at our top stories. A preliminary report into the Air India crash that killed over 260 people in Ahmedabad, India, says fuel control switches were moved to cut off just before impact. Cockpit audio detailed in the report highlights that one pilot asked why the fuel was shut off, but the other denied doing it. Continuing Israeli attacks in Gaza have reportedly killed a further 28 Palestinians, including children, according to local authorities. This comes as indirect ceasefire talks between Israel and Hamas have reportedly stalled after optimism from the US and Israel over a deal. Kyiv says that Russia has launched the second largest drone and missile assault on Ukraine after days of overnight action from Moscow. Poland scrambles fighter jets as the west of Ukraine is targeted, with 4 deaths reported so far. Meanwhile, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has met with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un after praising North Korea for their important contribution during the war with Ukraine. North Korean troops have been fighting side by side with Russian forces. Sources have suggested that Russian President Vladimir Putin has urged Iran to take a zero-enrichment nuclear deal with the US. It comes after the 12-day war in which Israel and then the US targeted Iran's nuclear facilities over fears of nuclear weapons progress. The US State Department has begun firing more than 1,350 US-based employees as the Trump administration continues to push forward its federal cuts. The move has been controversial, though Trump insists departments need trimming. Meanwhile, President Trump has praised officials for an incredible job responding to flash floods in Texas that killed at least 120 people and left more than 160 still missing. Trump said both state and federal teams had worked well together during a visit to Kerr County. And Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has declared victory after Kurdish rebels laid down their arms, ending a decades-long armed struggle. The president says everyone in Turkey has won, promising stability. But we start this hour with trade, and President Donald Trump has said that the US will impose a 30% tariff on goods from the European Union and Mexico that will take effect on August the 1st. Trump revealed the new rates in letters to European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum, which he posted on his social media site Truth Social. While writing to Mexico's Sheinbaum, Trump said, "Mexico has been helping me secure the border, but what Mexico has done is not enough." Meanwhile, Trump said that there will not be tariffs on goods from the EU if the 27-member bloc or companies within the EU decide to build or manufacture products within the United States. Warning Mexico and the EU, Trump has further said that if both nations retaliate with higher tariffs, then whatever the number they choose to raise them by will be added on to the 30% that US charge. Well, joining us to discuss this latest development that we bring you, Raymond Vickery, former US Assistant Secretary of Commerce, joining us from Washington, D.C. Raymond, as always, a pleasure to have you on the programme. Some big news in the world of trade and in the world of global economics. Of course, Trump saying 30% tariffs on Mexico and the EU, praising Mexico at the same time, saying that work could be done on the border. What's your initial reaction to these announcements?
Well, Joshua, thanks very much for having me. It seems to me that what's going on here is all in line with the Trump approach to international trade. International trade, of course, is absolutely essential to building peace and prosperity. You can't have peace without having economic relations. And for 80 years, we've had a system, a multilateral system, through the WTO and GATT to be able to
I believe that we are facing an issue with Raymond as we try to reconnect. Let's look at the broader picture at play here. April the 2nd, US President Donald Trump released his Liberation Day tariffs, then issuing a 90-day pause with base 10% rates placed on around 70 countries. Then that deadline was extended, but Trump saying that August the 1st is the deadline, with new rates being imposed for the US and these countries to make those deals. Raymond, you are back with us. Can you pick up from where you left off and continue the excellent point you were making?
Well, yes, he's destroyed the multilateral system in favor of a bilateral transactional approach. And his stock and trade is chaos. To negotiate in real estate, what he's tried to do historically is create chaos, which creates fear, that then makes people want to bend to his way. And he's trying to do that here. The 30% announcement on EU and Mexico has not gone into effect, just like all of these other tariffs he's talked about. April 2nd announced, kicked down the road 90 days, and then another 3 weeks to August 1st. And what's going on here is extending the approach which he's already used in sending letters to 14 countries to EU and Mexico, in hopes that this further chaos will bend them to his will. I think that what's going on, though, in regard to the nations of the world in dealing with Trump, is that they're on to this negotiating tactic. And they're not going to bend to it. They want to see if they can keep out of the line of fire. But when you look at what's happened so far, it's really been very little. There really hasn't been any real tariff agreement. The agreements with the UK, with China, have been only frameworks. Same thing with Vietnam. There have been announcements that Indian deal was imminent, going to happen anytime, going to be very favorable to Trump and the U.S., and that hasn't happened. The problem is a miscalculation here. And the first time around, the markets in the United States cratered. Then the markets figured out taco, which meant Trump always chickens out. But at some point there can be miscalculation, and the harm will be incalculable to the U.S. And to the world's trading nations. So this is a part of the pattern here. One can only hope that taco remains in place, that Trump will at the last minute do what he's done before, and the results will not be as harmful as they could be. But this is a very dangerous time for the entire world trading system.
Yes, Raymond, I want to pick up on those comments that Trump has made over the course of these months since April the 2nd. Only recently at the G7 summit was he saying that deals with countries like Canada and the EU were close, saying that they could be done within a month. Why is Trump's rhetoric different when he's around these leaders versus when he's not? And is this Trump the art of the deal, or is this Trump changing his mind and getting frustrated with the lack of deals that have been done? He said that this was going to be a way of getting countries to agree to a fairer deal with the United States against his imbalances. But, as we've seen, no concrete deals other than those three frameworks have yet to be done.
Well, I think it's both. I think that his art of the deal has been to create chaos and fear, and then to switch over and be the nice guy, and you can avoid the disaster which he is creating if you'll do what he says. At the same time, I think that he has run up against a reality which is not familiar to him from the world of real estate and the kinds of deals that are made there. And that is that sovereign nations, particularly nations such as those in the EU, Canada, Brazil, India, are democracies. They have their own imperatives to to follow. And they're not going to just say, okay, in order to not get in the line of fire, I'm going to give up. This business with Bolsonaro and trying to levy tariffs in order to be able to interfere with the judicial approaches. He thinks that tariffs evidently are a universal fix-it for his approach. But that's not reality. That's not what's going to happen. We can only hope and pray there won't be miscalculation and some irreversible harm will be done.
Yes, absolutely, Raymond. We are getting some updates now from Trump's announcement and reacting on the new tariff. European Commission's head Ursula von der Leyen has said that imposing 30% tariffs on EU exports would disrupt essential transatlantic supply chains. She has also said that few economies in the world match the European Union's level of openness and adherence to fair trading policies. While reiterating attempts to crack a fair deal with the US, Ursula von der Leyen further said that European Commissions remain ready to continue working towards an agreement by August the 1st. Moving on now, and amid the conundrum over the Iran and US nuclear talks, Iran has said that any new nuclear deal must respect its right under the Non-Proliferation Treaty to enrich uranium for peaceful purposes, rejecting US demands for a halt. Meanwhile, Foreign Minister of Iran, Abbas Araghchi, reiterated that it was reviewing the details of a possible resumption of talks with the United States on its nuclear program. He has further said that any talks with major powers would focus only on Iran's nuclear activities, not military capabilities, like its ballistic missile arsenal. Tehran and Washington had been engaged in talks since April, but those efforts were disrupted when US ally Israel launched a surprise attack on Iran's nuclear facilities on June the 13th, just 2 days before a planned meeting in Oman. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, while warning Europe, has said that a so-called snapback of UN sanctions could end Europe's role in the issue of Tehran's nuclear program. A clause in the 2015 nuclear agreement between Iran and world powers allows for UN sanctions to be reimposed in the event Tehran breaches the deal. While speaking on the potential deal with the US on nuclear, Araghchi said that cooperation with the UN nuclear watchdog, the IAEA, will take a new form. Well, moving on, and the United Nations warned today that dire fuel shortages in the Gaza Strip have reached critical levels, threatening to further increase the suffering in the war-ravaged territory. 7 UN agencies sent in a statement that fuel is the backbone of survival in Gaza and powers hospitals, water systems, sanitation networks, ambulances, and other humanitarian operations. Without it, Gaza faces the collapse of healthcare, clean water access, and aid delivery. The warning comes just days after the UN managed to deliver fuel to Gaza for the first time in 130 days, but only a fraction of the daily requirement was met. The agencies say a consistent and adequate fuel supply is urgently needed to prevent a complete humanitarian breakdown. Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has declared that a new page has opened after Kurdish PKK fighters began disarming, marking the start of a long-awaited peace process. On Friday, 30 PKK fighters symbolically burned their weapons in northern Iraq following a call by imprisoned PKK leader Abdullah Öcalan to end armed struggle. Erdogan called the move a victory for all citizens and said it signalled the beginning of the end of a 40-year insurgency that has killed more than 40,000 people. Let's listen in to what Erdogan had to say.
İtibariyle 47 yıllık terör belası inşallah sona erme sürecine girmiştir. Türkiye uzun, acılı, sancılı, gözyaşlarıyla dolu bir sayfayı dün itibariyle kapatmaya başlamıştır. Türkiye kazanmıştır. milletim kazanmıştır. Türk, Kürt, Arap 86 milyon. Her bir vatandaşımız kazanmıştır.
Well, he urged the Turkish parliament to support the disarmament process and oversee the PKK's transition into legal democratic politics. The disarmament will continue in stages and is expected to be complete by September. We head back now to the Middle East, and in a rare development, a Syrian and an Israeli official are expected to meet later today in Baku, Azerbaijan, according to a diplomatic source in Damascus. The meeting will take place on the sidelines of Syrian President Ahmed al-Shara's visit to the country, but will not include Shara himself. The talks are set to focus on Israel's recent military presence in Syria following the ousting of former President Bashar al-Assad in December. Moving on now, and in Kuala Lumpur, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi has met with British Foreign Secretary David Lammy. The two discussed strengthening bilateral ties, emphasising mutual respect and working together for mutual benefit. Wang highlighted the 80th anniversary of World War II's victory, urging both nations to safeguard the post-war order and uphold their global responsibilities as permanent UN Security Council members. Lammy expressed optimism over the positive momentum in Sino-British relations, emphasising frequent exchanges and cooperation in areas like trade and economic development. He reaffirmed Britain's commitment to the One China policy and its desire to develop safe, stable, mature relations with China. The leaders also discussed major international issues, including the Iranian nuclear situation and the ongoing Ukraine war. Well, joining us to discuss this development in this relationship is Dr. Satoru Nagao, a fellow at the Hudson Institute, joining us from Tokyo, Japan. Dr. Nagao, as always, thank you for being here. We're looking at another bilateral that has taken place after this ASEAN summit, specifically looking at relations between the United Kingdom and China. Do you think that this is messaging that we've heard and that is reality, or given the fact that either nation is slightly sided differently in terms of their ideologies, do you think this is more of a formality and a process of bilateral conversations that need to take place?
Yes, it could be a formal reconciliation of the bilateral relations, but UK's China policy is a little bit combined with security and economy. In the security side, UK is ally of the United States and relatively hawkish policy toward China. But in case of the economy, because of the UK is facing a serious situation, especially after the Brexit, so that's why the UK tried to reconcile relations with China. And in this case, a little bit interesting is last week, Chinese foreign minister visits 3 countries, Belgium, France, and Germany. So mainly the EU country he visited, but relation between China and EU was very bad because of China's policy toward Russia. So China is supporting Russia, war in Ukraine. In this case, European side asked China to end the support to Russia, and China refused because of then the China side said if Russia's aggression in Ukraine continues, the target of the US is Russia, not China, they said. So that's why this is a very big problem between China and EU or other European countries. And other aspect of China's economical conflict with Europe is, of course, they restrict rare earths to Europe, and they do not export enough amount of the rare earths to Europe, and the European country cannot produce enough number of car or other products based on these rare earths. So that's why under such kind of situation, Europe and China relation is not good. But in case of UK, because of the UK take distance from Europe, independently they are rebuilding the relation with China economically. But at the same time, the UK's aircraft carrier is sending the Indo-Pacific, and this is a hawkish message towards China. They will not visit China. And so that's why the UK's policy is a little bit controversial, because the security is hawkish against China, economically try to rebuild the relation with China. So that's why this is why UK's global Britain policy, what is diversify the trade partner, including China. So UK will not rely on the trade with China, but UK want to increase or improve the relation with China in the business field.
Yes, and Dr. Nagao, I do want to focus on another point of discussion between David Lammy and Wang Yi. That, of course, is Iran, their nuclear deal, and the ongoing tensions that have taken place. Of course, China and the United Kingdom were both signatories in that initial 2015 deal. Do you think that countries like China and the United Kingdom can have an actual part in any potential future deal, given the current geopolitical instability?
In case of the security, the UK's policy is adjusting the situation of the United States. So if the United States try to bomb the nuclear site in Iran, in this case, UK cannot resist this. So that's why there is a big gap between the UK's policy toward Iran and China's policy toward Iran. So view from security, UK's policy is clear. Cannot cooperate with China to deal with Iran. But in the business field, a little bit different. But this is a part of the diversification of the trade partner of the UK. So UK will not rely on China in the long run, I believe.
Yes, absolutely. Dr. Nagao, you will be staying with us as we move on now. And 3 locations used by Cambodia's brutal KHMER rogue regime as tortured and execution sites 50 years ago have been added by UNESCO to its World Heritage List. The 3 locations were inscribed to the list by the United Nations Cultural Agency on Friday during the 47th session of the World Heritage Committee in Paris. The inscription coincided with the 50th anniversary of the communist KHMER rogue government. It caused the deaths of an estimated 1.7 million Cambodians through starvation, torture and mass executions during a 4-year reign from 1975 to 1979. UNESCO's World Heritage List lists sites considered important to humanity and includes the Great Wall of China, the Pyramids of Giza in Egypt, the Taj Mahal in India and Cambodia's Angkor archaeological complex. Here is how Prime Minister Hun Manet has reacted to the news.
The inscription of the Cambodian memorial sites, from centers of repressions to places of peace and reflections on the World Heritage List, is not only a recognition of a site, but of a painful history, and above all, of the extraordinary resilience of the Cambodian peoples. These sites bear witness to the millions of innocent lives lost during one of the darkest chapters of our nation's history, and to the devastating consequences of hatred, violence, and the denial of human dignity. Yet, despite this painful past, Cambodia has chosen the path of reconciliation and peace.
Well, thank you to Dr. Nagao for staying with us. I'm going to keep this brief, Dr. Nagao. Of course, history for many nations can have dark stories to tell, but of course UNESCO sites looking at that and not necessarily celebrating, but also providing context and potential lessons that can be learnt in this situation in Cambodia. What's the significance of keeping this history there and relevant so people can understand and learn and also carry those memories forward?
This is very important place to learn the lesson of the authoritarian regime the policy, but in this case, not just authoritarian regime. Pol Pot, who leads the Khmer Rouge, was a little bit crazy rebel, the fear that he had. So that's why he tried to kill all of the educated people who has the potential to resist his regime. So that's why, for example, the gathering people and ask the doctor because there is a patient there. But if the doctor raises a hand, they bring this doctor and kill them. So that was happened in many places repeatedly, nearly 4 years. So in total number is 1 million, 1 million to 2 million people was killed in the Cambodia. But this was happened because of the Pol Pot want to maintain their regime. So after that, when the part of the Pol Pot attacked Vietnam, and Vietnam was upset very much and start to attack Cambodia. That time, it was first time such kind of situation in Cambodia has revealed to the outside. So that's why this was a very important lesson to what happened in the domestic society. The international community should not ignore it. At the same time, the political system itself, especially transparent system or democratic system, these are very important. This incident indicated that. And another lesson related with this is caused from the great power competition between China and the Soviet Union. Soviet Union is Vietnam side, and China support the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia at that time. So that's why, because of this great power competition between the communist side, eastern side, because of this, in the international community, more open society cannot access the information inside, but because of this, what happened in Cambodia hasn't revealed outside so much. But indeed, this is very important, and at the same time, the owner, which is China at that time, should know what happened in Cambodia and try to intervene if they believe they are the master. So there are plenty of lessons related with Khmer Rouge regime in the Cambodia, but this was a real historical tragedy, and we should not repeat it. We must not repeat again.
Yes, absolutely. Dr. Nagao, thank you ever so much for joining us and providing that context. We now move to Africa, and Cameroon has set its presidential election date for October the 12th, and this according to a decree from President Paul Biya, the 92-year-old leader who has ruled the country for almost 43 years, has not confirmed whether he will run for an 8th term. While Biya's supporters are starting to distance themselves, the opposition remains fragmented and struggles to unite behind a single candidate. High-profile figures such as former Minister Issa Chimroma Bakare and ex-Prime Minister Bello Balba Magere have resigned from Biya's camp to run for president. Other contenders include Maurice Kamto, a major critic of Biya, and Cabral Libi of the Cameroonian Party for National Reconciliation. Candidates have until July the 21st to announce their intentions. We'll now take a look at the latest news from across the Indo-Pacific region. More than 500 civilians and 100 Myanmar soldiers fled across the border into Thailand on Saturday after an assault by ethnic Karen fighters on a Myanmar military base. The attack, which took place in Myanmar's Kayin state, was part of the ongoing civil conflict following the 2021 military coup. As Myanmar's junta loses control over much of the country, Thailand has ramped up border patrols to prevent further military spillover. Humanitarian aid has been provided to those fleeing the violence, adding to the growing refugee crisis, with over 80,000 Myanmar refugees currently living in Thailand. Singaporeans have raised $200,000 in humanitarian aid for the victims of the March earthquake in Myanmar. The funds, collected through a partnership between the Ramatan Lil Alamin Foundation and the Singapore Red Cross, will help provide essential supplies like food, water and blankets to those affected. Acting Minister Faisal Ibrahim, who attended the donation ceremony, praised the collective efforts of Singaporeans and emphasised the country's spirit of compassion and support for its neighbours in need. Chinese automaker Chery has denied claims that it improperly received government subsidies for environmentally friendly vehicles. An audit by the Ministry of Industry and Information Technology found discrepancies in over $53 million worth of subsidies, including Chery's, due to missing documentation and UNMET mileage requirements. Chery stated that it had consulted authorities about the missing receipts and insisted that no fraudulent activity took place. The audit did not include allegations of fraud. A lead poisoning scandal at a kindergarten in northwest China has sparked major public backlash after allegations of a local government cover-up. The incident came to light when Liu Qifang, the father of a girl at the centre of the scandal, discovered a discrepancy in his daughter's blood test results. Initially told her lead levels were low, a second test revealed they were alarmingly high, 40 times above the safety threshold. Other parents have shared similar stories of government workers downplaying the severity of the issue. Authorities in Tianshui, Gansu province have yet to respond to inquiries about the scandal. Well, that's all we have time for, but we will continue to bring you more of the latest news from across the world.